In just about any business, you are engaged in value creation and commerce. If you can't turn a profit, the chances are you can't stay in business. It's not sustainable. You have obligations, you have employees, you have supply chain partners, so you need to have cash flow and a positive cash flow. You need to be profitable. So how do you become profitable? TrakSYS was designed and will continue to be focused on improving the way you manage the manufacturing operations. The idea of a smart product, a smart offering, is that it takes care of the complexities so the user doesn't need to address those complexities himself or herself. As simple as possible in a smart system means the user can be focused on the things that are expected of the individual, as opposed to, oh my God, I need to know what's under the hood. How does it connect to this and that, and how do I gather? So those are the kinds of things that TrakSYS is designed to take care of. So in order for you to deploy MES, you're not going to need rocket scientists. So we don't want to trivialize the task of the line operators, shop floor workers, because they need to be skilled in what they do. But we are not going to be asking them to be computer scientists. You can progressively put in as much functionality, as deep as you want to inside TrakSYS, again, depending on the level of skills that are required within your job market. The job market has a cyclical behavior, and as technology adjusts, there is an ebb and flow to the types of positions that are in demand, and some are less in demand. Just about any business out there gets impacted by it. So manufacturing is not exempt to this. So depending on the complexity of what you are making, what kind of support it needs. Look, depending on what you are in business to manufacture, if you are a semiconductor manufacturer, you have a different level of complexity than someone who is making juice, right? So the technologies are different. The kind of support you need would be different. The skills of workers would be different. So the more skilled technologists you need, the more rare that is. So the fewer options you have. We've seen this in all sorts of census data, where skilled workers are at a low supply. And also there is a geographic aspect to that. The way MES can work is that level setting. It can replace a certain level of complexities and requirements that are needed by very skilled workers, so that a lot of the hard and heavy lifting can be done by the solution platform, so that also levels the playing field, especially geographically speaking, that, we don't have the requisite labor, thus we can do this. So the idea is that depending on the level of sophistication that you need, commensurate with the complexities of your operations, you can build those into the solution platform. So now you can combat that level of skilled labor shortage with technology aiding the kind of workers that you have available in your geography, and you shouldn't be impacted by the outcomes. The technology can indeed address skilled labor shortages. And sometimes, there is just pure shortage, regardless of the level of the skills you're looking for. And again, that's where automation and digitalization come into play to make up that shortage. One of the most important things about TrakSYS and what we set out to do was to bring value to the people who are using it, eliminate as much of the complexities involved in the process of manufacturing as possible. When you look back at the trends for globalization and offshoring that came with it, the idea was, okay, this is a global economy. We have access to produce not just where we were, but anywhere. And if labor and raw materials are cheaper over there, then as long as logistically it's possible to transport the goods economically, the equations favored offshoring. Let's go over there and do the work offshore. That resulted in a lot of businesses in more advanced economies to move to areas where the cost of doing business was significantly lower. And sometimes regulations were also more laxed. Let's go do business there because overall it's simpler, cheaper, economically favorable, and this is global economy. I have logistics, I have transport, it should be fine. We look at the history of human beings, wars, disruptions, famines, and the latest was the COVID pandemic. What happened? We saw massive disruptions in supply chain. And distances became an issue. And then you put on top of that geopolitical events and more protectionism as it's emerging in the marketplace today. And you say, wouldn't that be nice if I could reshore and come back and manufacture where I am? Well, what about costs? Well, what if technology made it possible to offset the higher cost of doing business locally and also created some jobs? So if the plants were shuttered here and you bring them back, you're going to hire people. So not only you get an additive impact on employment, you also offset the cost of doing business by more advanced technology that can produce the goods that would otherwise require more people, longer times to produce, and generally speaking, more cost. So by being able to deploy technology that addresses those, you no longer have to worry about the complexities of logistics. If you looked at Port of LA a few years ago, these container ships were lined up forever. You couldn't see the end of them. Or containers were not available to transport goods. Well, imagine if they were right here locally. You would have a smaller carbon footprint, so you would improve the environmental impact. You would positively impact the local economy because you would hire people to work within those factories, and then you also deploy technology to make it economically feasible. So technology has an equalizing impact. We designed TrakSYS to be very extensible, very flexible, very scalable. But it is important to understand that our customers are not looking to buy a product. They're trying to solve a problem, so they're looking for solutions, especially within the enterprise where we have customers with locations all over the world. So you can imagine how difficult it is to sustain one-off solutions. So we have been working on execution, design, and deployment of the solutions to also be standardized so that you can scale and you can move these from site to site and manage them in a very effective way, again, without having to force feed the local sites to use things that may not be applicable to them. That is a critical topic, and it becomes one of the barriers to adoption of the technology, because you spend a lot of time and effort and then you realize that you can't sustain it. Our goal, both in the design of the product and also the solutioning methodology that we share with our partners and with our customers, to enable them to actually own the solutions in a productized and standardized way for their sites around the world. The supply chain is a critical part of manufacturing. So you obviously have the supplier of raw ingredients or partially processed and fabricated components that are used within the manufacturing operations of a manufacturing company. And then those processed goods or finished goods are moved down to the next, whatever it might be, distribution centers or the retail outfits. Supply chain disruptions can happen due to things like the pandemic, to local and regional conflicts. So you need to have resiliency in that process. What we do with TrakSYS is to provide visibility to supply chain partners. So you can have a more pull-through type of a system, and that visibility will allow your supply chain partners to understand your demand so they can be better planned. That's the value of technology. So for example, with TrakSYS, we algorithmically take a look at the process. We take a look at the typical yields. We take a look at assets. We take a look at how one asset performs against the others. So if we have tightness of supply chain or specific ingredients, we are able to take a look and see what are our most efficient ways to be able to take advantage of what we have on hand to be able to meet the production demands with the least amount of the supplied materials. Like we do with TrakSYS for our customers, they can provide that visibility without their suppliers having to install any software, without having to own TrakSYS. But since they can gain access in a secure way to the demand side, to the consumption side, they can plan and orchestrate how they will supply to be just in time, or if there is disruption planned, move the inventory to near the site or at site in order to make sure that there is no disruption. At the bottom of this thing, at the heart of this thing, I should say, is the utilization of meaningful, contextualized, and relevant data that can facilitate activities within the supply chain. First of all, you need to have a market demand for your product. So there needs to be a reason for people to buy your products. So we leave that to the marketeers and what is there that would create that demand. MES plays a crucial role in making sure your operations are aligned, coordinated, as lean and efficient as possible. You are consuming based on the least waste protocols. You are using as little utilities as possible. So when you take a look at it, you will reduce the unit cost of production while you are creating valuable contributions to the economy, greenhouse effects, carbon footprint reduction, because you're not wasting. You're not running your equipment extra hours because you could not get the speed of production, because you could not produce at high quality, so you had to waste and run longer. So every aspect of this that you take a look at is going to have a reductive effect on the bad things that happen that will add cost, time to market. All of those are going to create positive economy for you. And those are significant drivers of profitability.